Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming. My name is Anna Fateeva. I am a curator and art advisor, and I also lead gallery tours. So actually, today it was supposed to be a Chelsea gallery tour. I'm really sorry to those who were planning to join, but it appeared that it's Memorial Day, and because of that, many galleries are closed. There was a happy coincidence, and just a day ago, I met the gallerist, Anna Garfinkel. Here she is. And very quickly, we decided to organize this kind of art talk with the artist, French-Ukrainian artist, Yana Bestrova, right? Yeah. Bystrova, it sounds like that in Russian. So I really thank the gallery Crossing Art for hosting us. And yeah, I'm really happy to introduce you the artist. Yana has come from Paris. She has been working there for many years. And the works that you see came from 3 different places, from her studio in Paris. Some of them are from New York, and also some of them, this one actually in particular, has been exhibited in Chicago Museum, and so now it is here. I saw in the catalog that they were placed differently, so it's possible to arrange them in different
Yes, it's
ways.
also, this piece, as I already explained to a couple of guests, I do like to engage in dialogue and ask for active interpretation from a spectator. So there are certain of my pieces, they can be exposed in different ways. Particularly this one, it can be flipped to either towards the right or towards the left, upside down, which would invoke a cornucopia. And even if the space would have allowed, but here it was kind of slightly too tight, but it can also be exposed hanging on a diagonal, so it's kind of, the piece goes diagonally. It's a kind of way to vary and play with pieces so they mean slightly different things. It always remains a Fibonacci sequence and a golden ratio, but it allows to avoid fatigue and repetition. So this is what I like, this is what I practice with my works.
So you mentioned that you like when the viewer has his or her active position, right?
Yeah.
And so the name of the show is Do You See What I See? So could you please tell a little more about your approach?
Okay. Obviously, everyone sees in a different way. This is kind of rather a call, an appeal to involve people in not only looking but seeing, actively seeing and interpreting what they see. And since I work, one of the central interests in my art is color, is one of those things that is non-verbal, non-figurative, but psychologically very active ingredient that calls for active interpretation. And the question is always, do you see red as I see red, for example? No one knows the answer, but this is how I kind of try to engage the viewer to be an active viewer and not just consumer.
I also find it really interesting that your works are somewhere in between of abstraction and figuration. So how does it work for you?
Okay, well, this is a very interesting question. I find that generally speaking, they are not at all antinomous. They can coexist very peacefully, and I know that all the abstract painters that I adore, they had their figurative part of career. So did I, by the way. And in the present stage of what I do like to combine landscapes and abstractions in the same show, not only in my process. They are 2 parts of the same process. I usually go out, do the plein air sessions, And the most successful compositions, the most successful little findings that I do every season, I convert or develop or purify, it depends on the case, into abstraction, into abstract composition, and a set of colors that is different from the original material. But these are, in the same time, they're finished pieces. They're pieces in themselves, but they're also material samples from what I live through when I do plein air sessions. And I develop that, I use that in the process for more abstract pieces. And I find the combination of the two in the same exhibition much more explanatory and probably a wider view on a wider way to understand what an artist does, what's artist's point in doing what one does.
Do you want the viewers to see your works more as abstract works or figurative?
As they like. I don't really impose my interpretation. It is pretty obvious that I'm kind of trying to take even landscapes and shift them towards more abstract pictures, but you can still recognize, people who came to Expo recognize that that was water and that was kind of garden with flowers, and these are all pretty obvious and close to, in fact, to the nature. But there are works in between, indeed, that do have certain forms that are kind of maybe recognizable, but they also can be interpreted in just geometrical forms. So it's really up to the viewer. I do my work, the viewer has to do one's work.
I'm really curious about your point of view, about your comparison of French art scene and New York art scene. What is the difference? What can you tell us?
Eh bien, well, I have to start from saying that I do love New York art scene. It's more diverse. It's way more unpredictable. There are things here that are happening which have nothing to do with official art. There are art forms that are really weird to me as a classically trained artist. I noticed that general public has certain curiosity and has larger margin of allowance for weird things to be interpreted as art. Sometimes it's a little skewed, sometimes it goes really too weird, but it's okay. In France, I would say it's apart from the fact that for years it was a politics of Ministry of Culture to singularly promote conceptual art and let painting and sculpture and other forms like manual forms of art kind of be in a state of oblivion a little bit for long, long years. Now it's changing. There are signs, really encouraging signs. I saw the painting exhibitions organized by Ministry of Culture. So this is very encouraging. How long will it take and where would it lead and what will be the shape of it? I don't know, but galleries and public and institutions were kind of narrowly angled, unfortunately, for long years on that type of art. We'll see what happens. I have to say, there are really good galleries and interesting artists in Paris, in France. But I do feel more at home and accepted here.
Really?
Yeah.
Tell us more about that. How is that?
Well, I love New York. as I said, since I wasn't born here, I've realized that you're allowed into society to a certain point, and then there is this glass ceiling. I felt it. It's getting higher in France. There is more allowance in France that's going on. But for years it was kind of limiting. Being a foreigner in France was limiting. It's much less limiting in the United States, and specifically in New York. I wouldn't speak for all the United States, I don't know. But in New York, I don't know, the energy, the curiosity, and the hustle, unavoidably, the short attention span. But in the same time, this curiosity and forthcoming of people, and people do help a lot each other, even though for really short period of time. But this kind of, I don't know, it's like all being in a city of big, it's a big, problematic, difficult city, but it's really enjoyable one.
Thank you so much. So we have an opportunity to ask Yana any questions about the exhibit, art process, etc. If you have any, please.
When you look at the painting, how do you define whether it's actually a piece of art? How do you actually figure out something that will, contemporary art, that will stay forever or worth collecting and worth holding on to because it's going to be meaningful versus just
I'm often asked this question. You'd be surprised to what point I'm often asked this question. But to give you a short answer, since it all takes disciplined and educated eye. If you've seen lots of different art forever in your life, you don't need a label to read the label. Actually, I know one. I have to talk about France a little. Some little compliment to France. I know some curator who does exhibitions where he doesn't allow the names of artists to be printed next to the works. It's a little salon of erotic salon, and there are two salons. One is death salon, and another one is erotic salon. And it's a good practice because you're compelled to look at works rather than names. It is a certain, I would say disturbing, but it helps people, tendency to concentrate. If it's a piece of shit, but it's done by a famous artist, then it's totally adored and accepted immediately. In the same time, a famous artist piece of shit will still be better than some sort of, it takes just seeing lots of art and being disciplined and knowing the background. You know, okay, probably to better explain, when you look at a piece of work, piece of art, people who studied art and worked in art for a while and who are not just randomly throwing paint on the canvas, but producing things that have something behind them, a thought, a will to express some feeling, whatever. It is almost impossible, or you have to try really hard to not refer to something that has been done before. And this, what has been done before, unavoidably, if you've gone through the same process of seeing, studying, looking at the same pieces, you will recognize it. It's recognizable. Even though for little bits and pieces, it can be very subtle. But when you've gone through this process of seeing lots of art before, you recognize it. It's obvious. It kind of becomes obvious. If it's random, it's random. It's kind of, I guess you can nowadays, if you try really hard, you can fool people with AI and with all the information accessible. If you really want, you can fool people. It's not for nothing that they say that 1/3 of masterpieces in Louvre apparently are copies or fakes. But if we're talking about like discovering new art or looking at unknown artists and at something that they present, usually if if the artist has done one's homework, you'll see it.
So the provenance is like historical provenance of that piece is what actually defines it to be good or bad. That lineage to the not who owned it, but meaning that from whom that artist learned.
No, I would say the work that artist has done, the homework that the artist has done, means the quality, kind of reflects in the quality of work. If the artist is not a serious one, you'll see it. If the artist is serious, it helps to see more than one or two pieces. And if you're lucky to see pieces from different periods, you cannot mistake a bad one for a good one, or vice versa. It will be obvious.
But then in contemporary art, please interrupt.
Sure, yeah, go.
In the contemporary art, how important it is for the artist to have a formal education? Exactly, like in the Soviet Union, to have something more in France as well, to go to Académie des Beaux-Arts and you study classics and you study the proper color coordination and drawings and all that in order to make this going forward into abstract. That first step, how important is it?
There you're pointing at a pain point, very difficult point, because naive art is celebrated now, and some people actually prefer it and feel much more comfortable with it than with professionally done art. Yet, when you look at people like Frida Kahlo, for example, who didn't really follow formal education, it's a good example of naive. But you can see that she invested lots of force, lots of attention, lots of thought and effort in it, and they're not just random pieces. It screams pain, it screams lots of feelings. So I still do prefer academically trained artists who have not only trained but overcame that academic part of the process. But there is less and less of us. The naive and non-professionally, non-academically trained artists, of course, have right to exist. But again, it depends very much on how much of effort and invested in the work, how much is work behind every piece that is done. And if you are asking from a practical point of view, an artist has to show like several works, or better yet, a period, like beginning of some period, some other period, and some other, and then it becomes obvious. That's the best I can do.
Thank you, Yana.
Thank you. Thanks for coming.